Doors are locked, my keys are lost, I'm reeking of beer. Well, I'm not fussed, no, I've had a good night. The cheap drinks, the good friends, the bright lights. I've been out here living my nightlife. The whole time you haven't crossed my mind. And my friends said you weren't the right type. And you've made it pretty clear that right. Tomorrow's headspins be alright. Cause I'm starting a new chapter. I've had enough, yeah, friends, enough. Yeah, I've had enough, yeah, friends, enough. Yeah, I've had you, I've had enough, yeah, friends.
Welcome back to the action here on the 4G pitch. We have the deciding game of a women's power pool in front of us, the Swiss women versus the women of Italy, who after Finland took a loss against the Belgian women, who it's great to see them finally getting a win over the big teams in their power pool, have left an opportunity open. Who knows who is going to snag the top of this group and go into quarterfinals directly without having to play the pre-quarter tomorrow. So all of the grabs. What do you reckon of these two teams, Joanna?
Yeah, these two teams have looked both quite strong coming into this game. As you mentioned, this is quite a good power pool. Along with Italy and Switzerland, this power pool has GB, Belgium, and Finland, and got lots of potential for a three-way or even a four-way tie in this pool. Italy so far has won 5 games and just lost 1 game. They lost to Finland 12-15. Switzerland, a little bit more of a checkered. They've lost 2 games and they've won 4 games. Both teams have been on the stream before. The Italian game where they beat Belgium 14-11 was streamed on the EUC YouTube page. And Switzerland has been streamed twice, beating Poland 15-11 and the loss to Finland 15-12. So both teams losing to Finland by the same amount, looking fairly even so far in their run-up to this game. But as you mentioned, a win or a loss here can determine who tops this pool and gets the all-important pass, doesn't have to play another game before the bracket.
Well, Italy have definitely looked very strong in this women's division. They have been taking some trading out for halves and then, as it's known, clapping teams, just really pulling away in the latter stages. GB were the first to really test them here. Who do you favour coming into this match, though, Joe, if you had to say it at this moment?
Difficult question. I actually haven't gotten to watch a full game from Italy yet. I know that they're strong, but I haven't seen the ways that they are strong. I've managed to see the Swiss team twice and been very, very impressed with their play. But as you mentioned, I think the ability to close out in the second half is not just an indication of the strength of play, but also an indication of mental toughness. And for me, that gives Italy the edge here, their ability to close and win.
All right, so you're favouring Italy. That means I need to cheer for Switzerland, who I've played a couple of times this season myself. I got a chance at Copa Tanga to play against their beach women's side, which has many players with double duty. And then again at Windmill, they were our first game of the tournament. Looked very handy indeed. So I'm fine to do that. They have a wonderful coach who actually has come across from the US to support Derek Gottlieb, the coach from the USA. And watch out, they'll be playing a style of offense that's very similar to a club team in the US. So Joe, will have a test just before the halftime, see if you can figure out that little juicy element as the Swiss get us underway. So a zone look from the Italians, straight out the blocks, trying to make the Swiss throw many passes in these rather blustery conditions here on field 2. The stadium pitch is still as it gets for ultimate outdoors, whereas this surface so different in many, many respects as they charge towards the end zone. Oh, and just a tumble to the turf for the Swiss. They give Italians the first chance at a break in this game. So Pancotti picks up the disc as Chesky goes up, reaching grab, huge receiver for the Italian team, but she's going to pop one up into the space. Fingertips for Scazieri. Nice focus from the Italians right now, pulling these high floating discs out the sky, but there's an error, putting the disc back into the hands of the Swiss. Up the line. 34 Niederhauser. Working well with that visor. Or is it a cap? Can't quite tell from over here. Finds a teammate crossfield. This is really nice play from the Swiss. Very expansive against the Italian zone. Win behind them. And we see a transition to match defense. Big arcing backhand. And I don't know who the intended target was, but there is a great come through from her teammate. Score for the Swiss, and they get the first point in this game for an offensive hold.
You mentioned the weather on this pitch. It is quite windy. We've got quite a bit of blustery gusts happening. Not quite as windy as some of the games we've seen before. Definitely a good choice by Italy to put a zone on, but having watched this Swiss offense carve through some zones from Finland and GB, we know they're very, very comfortable moving the disc quickly. You saw there as soon as they got into motion, they were away with it, and I think a zone is a good look in this weather, but this is a very, very strong team against zones.
I think Avdovic was the Avdovic even was the intended target, the number 22, but good attention from the middle of the stack.
Directionality for the wind is similar to what it's been before. It's coming a little bit from behind the camera, so the strong side of the pitch is the one closest to the camera, and then ever so slightly this is an upwind pull. The wind has been changing throughout games, so we'll keep you updated.
It really has. Here on the hot turf, it is swirly and changeable, gusty as well, so keeping things very interesting, playing a bit of eighth element defense. So we'll see the disc being pulled up the field. That one went out of bounds very quickly, never landed back in. So a short field opportunity for Italy. In play we go, a round backhand from Melega. Or Bonfante even. Those two with very similar numbers, 29 and 39, but both very good. Farolfi, the icon of the Cusp Shout team, former Eurostars player. Expect to see many things from her. Aggressive handler movement. Oh, cheeky inside, well put. Fakes the backhand, centers back for Rolfi in the end zone. And that is a hold for the Italians after a very short field on an errant pull.
Yeah, the Swiss definitely giving the Italians a upper hand advantage with that very short field, but moving it very calmly. Farolfi, as you mentioned, being the anchor quarterback of this offense, very calm with the disc. It'll be interesting to see. We've got Farolfi here as the quarterback of the Italian offense, and we've got Hauser as the quarterback of the Swiss. Those two kind of playing a similar role for each of their teams, central handler, catching goals as we see, but both of their play really highlighted with the Eurostars tour and other people getting to see just how central they've been to their teams.
Hauser, as you mentioned, a fabulous thrower, to credit her club side, Flying Angels Bern. Very experienced, although bit of gossip from the sidelines. I heard someone throwing a little bit of shade on Hauser, saying she's not quite the player she used to be. She did take a couple of seasons away to do a bit of real lifing, I think, but has such a deep tool set when it comes to throwing, as you see her there with the long sleeves, number 17, and the backwards cap. So another zone look for the Italians as the Swiss shoots downwind. Hauser, Lindemann. Nice give goes from the women of Switzerland. Punctures into the middle, takes a little bit of contact, does Mayor, but happy to play through it. Hauser distributes for an easy put into the hands of Göttinger.
Swiss demonstrating again just how strong they are on that zone offense. Completely comfortable to move the disc very, very quickly. Disc immediately in hands, players looking up pitch. Italy did a great job there of transitioning from zone into match almost seamlessly. There really wasn't a period of wondering who was going to be marking who, but against such a strong offense, even the best melt out of zone might not make that much difference.
seeing these teams currently holds 2 clean holds apiece. Switzerland currently, obviously, that up on the level, so they're trading up at the moment. 1 turn apiece from the opening side. I feel like this might turn into a bit of an upwind downwind game, Joe.
It could definitely do that. We've seen corners of the end zone become kind of the hot spots. We've seen several games where 6, 7, 8 points in a row were all scored in 1 meter squared box right behind the cone of one of these end zones. Particularly when there's wind, there's just favorite places on the pitch.
As we see big fakes from the handlers of Italy. That is Bonfante in the center of the field. Highly decorated Italian side. Many players, current European club champions. Many didn't favour the Italians coming into this division, as they said that Kuspschaut's victory was all based on their pickups, but that is a beautiful backhand put high into the end zone, over the hands of the defence, and just drops into the palms of Irene Scazzieri, one of the 2 Scazzieri sisters, 18 and 19, right next to each other on our roster sheets. Lovely play from the Italians and a great release.
Gorgeous, gorgeous play there. We've seen all of these offenses have been really quite slick from both teams. The Swiss defense there doing quite a nice handler sag. As the disc swung across, the handler defender moved into the lane to get in the way, stopping any of these smaller underpasses. But particularly when you've got the wind going with you, throwing over those marks is not too much of a problem because you want that float on the disc anyway. As we see here, the handlers recognizing that, going for a slightly higher release, getting it up so it just sits into the pocket.
And then the wind just gently pushing it down. And is that a buff that Scazzieri is wearing? Or is it a scarf? Can't quite tell from this distance. Either way, keeping her neck cool in these hot conditions. A little bit cooler today than it has been on the turf. The only artificial surface at this tournament as Switzerland go off to the races. Nice, smooth, flowing offense against the Italian zone. Four handlers at the back. Hauser goes across. Guttinger far side. Oh, has a teammate available deep. Throws it very late. She's going to have to tumble to the floor. Elaine Lehmann reaches out with the pivot and finds a streaking red shirt in front for the hold. And we continue to trade.
We do a textbook zone offense again from Switzerland. That Italian arrowhead defense sort of looks like the purpose of it is to keep discs out of that dangerous center of the field area, to push the disc wide. But Switzerland taking that opportunity, saying if you're going to give us the sidelines, we'll make great passes up the sidelines. We'll get these up the line cuts. We'll get the discs to our players. We'll score around the edge of the pitch. We don't need to score down the middle. We've got the speed of swings to move it fast enough to get these throws off.
Well, I pronounced it Lehman, but it kind of looks like the Lehman brothers from the number 22. And after she stumbled, that throw was money in the bank for the Swiss. Obviously a nation known for their banking, Joanna.
True, true.
Nice neutral, not part of the European Union. In the free trade zone, though. And
Very
the
good
Schengen
European
area.
knowledge.
Well, I'm learning all about it, Joanna, as you know, you live in the same country as me, even though you have a slightly different inflection in some of your English words from obviously being raised farther away. Where were you before you were in Europe?
Before I came to London, I lived in the US for 9 years, so started playing out there. So doing my best to live up to that by trying to pay attention to which team the Swiss might be playing like.
So the Italians throw an errant pass, but is scooped up by Scaglieri. Finds the Euro star Farolfi. Pops up, and that's a big shot over the top. Blady, but safely pulled in. And another red scarf score.
Really heads up help offense, as you mentioned there, by Scaglieri. She really that disc was not intended for her, but she saw the wind take that disc out of her teammate's hands and was ready in the backfield to back it up. And we've been talking about pieces of the pitch being possibly red hot, places that look good to score. It looks like it's that back corner of the end zone there. We've seen a lot of front corners be on fire. I would say it's that you might call it the weak side, the side the wind is blowing towards in the back of that end zone, and that's really caused by the wind that we're seeing here. If you pop something up, it will find its way to that back corner of the end zone.
And you can see the shaping on that disc is very good in terms of using the blade where you've got the face of the disc holding up against the wind. Obviously, if you expose the underside, you're going to get a bit ruined if you try and throw maybe a scuba into that pocket. But a good hold for the Italians. And we have to give credit to number 20, Cecilia Scagliarini with the help offense for her teammate. So match defense now from the Italians, allowing the Swiss to play their more favored style of offense, even a vertical stack. As we have a stoppage, I think probably for a pick. But I like to see the Italians changing up their defensive look, keeping the Swiss guessing.
One of the things the Italian team has spoken about is using the first half as an opportunity to kind of get the measure of their opponents. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them, as we see an amazing defense, testing out a couple things, getting the measure of their match before trying to pull away in the second half.
Yeah, great battle there between Pancotti and the number 23, Dosa Sarul. Oh, and a snag out in front. Gillespie finds around. Pancotti. You can hear Coach Gottlieb informing the marks where the threats are. As I say, the chap coming across all season long. I think his partner's away, but that's a saucy bit of break side offense from the Italians. And they get a hold. Very effective against this Italian side. Oh, I say a hold. I think that's a break, actually.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I believe it is a break. I think it's our... yeah.
I was behind on my stats. I'm getting too invested in this game and not focusing on my laptop enough, Joanna.
Our first break there, and into the wind, into the difficult end zone, the first score in that end zone of this match. As we see, the turn there really caused half by defensive pressure and half by wind pressure. When you bobble the disc in this wind, it goes in completely unexpected places. So not always an opportunity to get a second hand on that disc, and a great throw just out of the way of the receiver, in way of the defender, into the hands of the receiver, Fuentes Velez.
And so Italia team take the first break. Lots of big names on this roster. Who do you favour? Well, we've talked about Ferolfi before.
Yeah, we've called out a lot of these names so far already having an impact. One player that we can see not on the pitch, she's on the sideline in crutches with a knee brace, so it might be that she's out of this game or potentially the tournament, is Maria Chiara Frangipani. She is not suited up to play.
Well, that'll be a notable loss for the Italian side. We did speak briefly earlier. I mentioned the fact that some hadn't favoured the Italians, saying, as I said, the fact that they had a couple of extra hands on their club side crisp shout for their gold medal at the EUCF in Wrocław last season, but showing in this tournament they have plenty of native talent to see them deep into these tournaments. Still in power pool play though, pretty much anyone's for the taking. This is all about placement, this game, getting a slightly easier matchup as Switzerland launch it into the deep space, and that will be collected by the 34, Laura Niederhauser.
She's been huge for this Swiss team so far as I've been watching them throughout the tournament. A very powerful receiver, very, very secure hands, and great upwind match offense there from the Swiss, showing they can do something completely different than what we saw them do with their holds so far, which was downwind zone offense. Interesting maneuver by the Italians not to put a zone on despite the Swiss trying to go upwind. It could be that they're trying to throw something unexpected at the Swiss. However, the Swiss have shown they're very, very good at zone offense, so perhaps France thinking they might have a bit more luck with match.
Well, I'd love to see another replay on the wider shot. I think we might have to watch this one back, though, to get that, because we just did have one, but it looked like completely blown coverage. And Nina Hauser getting away from Anna Chesky, the number 31, who just was in the back of the shot as I looked at our little replay screen here. Such a talented deep threat, Anna Chesky. Big statured player for the Italian side. So the Swiss coming out on defense. They are one break down in this women's match. The Italians will now have to shoot against the wind. Keeping things nice and fun is Bonfante in the center of the field. Finds Lolly. Chiara's going to put a big one up, and it's going to be tipped away off the hands of Laura Kunzelman. Big player there, seeing her towering over the Italian player number 18, Scazzieri. Engages the hand as finds the around. That's a nice put, perfectly weighted. The Swiss with the wind at their backs. But an error from Harms puts it out too far for Phoebe Chambord to bring the goods in. Another look at that defensive play from the Swiss. So we wait for things to get back in play. Catches the net there, just stops herself from running onto the concrete that surrounds this 3G surface. Nice shot over the top, but that's too high to be kept in play for the Italians, and another error for the Swiss, giving an easy one back. See the little double fist bump there from Ferolfi on the force. Bonfante is going to pick it up, get us back in the action. We've got isolation of Sorrenti. Oh, and an inside ripper, but that's going to come out of the hands and be reeled in by Kunzelman. She's going to put a backhand, it's going to sit into the space, it's going to be a sliding knee grab. Some luminous base layer wear there for Lastovuka. Oh, and a launch. That is a lovely put. Great read, and snags it out of the sky. Phoebe Chambord. What a read.
Very, very impressive throw there, sitting right where it needs to be caught. And both teams doing a great job there of stifling defense. The wind picking up a bit in that point, really having an effect on things. But Switzerland proving that they got just a little bit better there of the Italian defense. Something that was really good on both sides of D in that point was recognizing the wind was about to pick up and that it is coming from behind the camera to the far side. Both teams were forcing towards that side, so the Swiss were actually forcing backhand, which is the less common force. You typically want to force throwers flick because it's often the slightly weaker throw. But in this case, forcing backhand means that the disc is going to end up on that difficult sideline, the sideline we saw the first turn come. The disc sometimes just not able to stay in pitch as it's blown out that direction. So very, very smart D from both teams forcing that sideline.
It's interesting you say that the forehand's usually the weaker throw. Certainly in lower down, sort of more grassroots level, that's always almost certainly the case. I sometimes think, because as a righty I'm always forced flick, or always forced in the forehand throw, it's actually improved my forehand, so sometimes my backhand is a bit janky. But I think at this level it's more about the ability and the way the positions you can stretch to when you break the mark when you're forced backhand. But as you say, a wise choice against this wind. So Italy with the disc, Chesky in the center of the field. Nice pop into Vandelli. Looks for Bonfante. Nice bit of handler jinking from her, opens up the arm. Oh, and that is beautiful play from Italy. Great separation, finds Chesky on the near side for a hold. And this is a beautiful trading game right now. The Italians up one break. They currently lead the charge 5-4. Although I think that's, I haven't updated my stats. We might be at 5 apiece. Indeed we are.
Yeah, so the Italians still with one break on their side. So Swiss not having broken the Italian offense yet, but they are still tied, so very, very tight game. I think the team's still a bit getting the measure of each other. The advantage of a week-long tournament like this is that each of these teams will have played other teams that their opponents have played. I've heard a lot of teams sort of walking around the tournament, getting the inside scoop on their upcoming opponents from teams who have played them before. So they'll have a lot of knowledge on each other, but still get the sense that they're throwing different things at each other, testing them out, seeing if they can poke out any weaknesses at this point.
Well, and that's what you said the Italians would look to do. As we see the Swiss coming down with the wind behind them. Italian sideline chanting something, and there is a lot of pressure piles on. Does Beatrice Cesana, causing a hard disc to be toppled into the ground. Shot goes up, defender on it, and that is a great block from Florence Windler.
Very, very athletic D to get in there. That's a hard throw to make. Again, with the wind coming towards that disc, it's going to float back towards the middle of the pitch. So if the defender has separation towards this near sideline, that doesn't always give you an advantage because the wind is going to blow the disc back towards where the defender is.
So Switzerland win behind them, launches a big backhand, and that is a beautiful play by the Swiss. They get the disc back after a bit too much of a high ball from the Italians, and Veronique Mayor brings in the goods for the Swiss. So we're just getting clarification on the score here in this match. Our stats are a wee bit confused. What's the news from the official here on the field?
So it is 6-5 to Switzerland, having just scored that goal. I think everything should now have the correct points on the board.
We're currently having a look at the score sheet. We believe the Italians are up one break, because the Swiss did start on offense. But Joe, how are you feeling about the Italian performance? Do you think they're currently dominating that little edge margin that you thought they would?
I don't know if we're seeing the edge just yet, but again, it might not be part of the game plan just yet to show that edge. We had a very interesting game with Finland and Belgium. I think you were saying the Finnish approach appeared to be trading and then looking to take an edge at the very end. And I think that's what we've seen with a lot of teams in the women's division, as we see a score there from Italy celebrating. Happy to trade in sort of the first half of the game and then hoping to pull away in the second. But with the Finnish match against Belgium, that actually went not in their favor, as when you trade too closely, when you get to the end of the match, the last point does win it. There's no 2 points to score to win. So if you're trading all the way and you happen to lose a break right at the very end, that's the whole game. So again, I like the Italian tactic of getting to know the other opposing squad, feel them out before really taking advantage of any weaknesses they might find. But the downside to that approach is if you don't find those weaknesses, or if the opposing team adjusts to what you perceive to be their weaknesses too quickly, there's not that much time in the second half to take it away. If they keep up with you the whole way, by the time you get to 12-12, 13-13, there's only a few points in it to win.
So these two teams currently neck and neck. The Swiss versus the Italians. So we see Olivia Hauser open up that big arm. She throws an absolute dime of a pass. That's picture perfect. Score for Switzerland.
Gorgeous shot there. Very, very closely defended. Not too much space between the receiver and her defender, but the disc just sits perfectly out to go get it. Potentially a pull play there. The Swiss coming out in a horizontal stack, cut from the far side to the end zone. Quite a traditional look immediately off the pickup.
Big launch from the slender arm of the big name Hauser.
And beautifully reeled in by Guttinger. We mentioned before, she's been very, very powerful for her team. A very strong receiver in the end zone. Catches a lot of discs under defensive pressure, not really fazed by how close the Italian is there.
So Switzerland, we are back on serve. They lead the charge, 7-6. Italians with the win behind them. And Bonfante, the Italian O-line, always pretty much found in the center of the field. Nice movement across, Lolly near us. Oh, and she's going to put up a big disc, but that is going to be read all day long by the number 5 for the Swiss team. Another big reception picked out by Kunzelmann. Oh, but an error. Number 44, that's Harms going into the flound. Eugenia not able to reel it in, and a short field for the Italians. Bonfante striding towards the disc. Bit of huck and D paid off against the Swiss zone. And again, you hear the coach, Gottlieb, helping his team out with the force. It's a great effect by the looks of this. Nice big use of that pivot. Lolly, close to the end zone. Recenters to Bonfante. Great downfield defense from the Swiss right now, shutting down all the opportunities. A relatively static set of Italians upfield, and there we go. Eventually finds the scoring opportunity in the form of Chiara Lolly. She gets out of the handler space and into the end zone to level us up here at 7 apiece.
Strong performance there by Italy. You almost feel like Switzerland gifted them that point back a little bit after having got the turn. This Swiss, if they'd been able to convert and take that break, that would have been a very powerful move for them. But just an overthrow for the Swiss leads to this beautiful Italian goal. The first turn from the Italian side, I think it came from what appeared to be a miscommunication from the Italian side, expecting a cutter to be going long and putting the disc up before really looking. And you could see the frustration on the face of the player. As soon as she let go of it, she could see that Swiss poach defender was there in the way, and her frustration at herself was very visible.
And Laura Kunzelmann, I'd argue probably one of the tallest players on the field right now. So an excellent choice for a deep defender in the zone. So Galaxy point, as some call it. Not sure how I feel about that term, but we see Hauser pick up the disc for the Swiss as the handlers run away from her, and a cutter comes in. There is a collision. There's a lot of body contact between Hauser and Ana Diaz. Diaz already sporting a compression bandage around her knee. Looks like she's peeling that one down. She's got a nice turf burn there, but Hauser clutching her legs to herself. She's going to call an injury. Take a bit of time off the field. Not hobbling really. Oh no, there we go. There's a left leg hobble. So hopefully see her come back on the field. As we say, the icon of Swiss women's ultimate.
Yeah, it would be a big loss for the Swiss O-line if she doesn't come back on. Thankfully, she is walking off fine and might just want to take a breather, not be rattled while continuing on offense, and hopefully we'll see her back on the next defensive possession. Italy choosing not to take a sub injury at the same time. This early in the point, that's probably a good call. Legs won't be too tired. No real need for a sub for Italy.
And Switzerland back off to the races. Lots of contact on the mark. Italian player losing her hat. That's Bazzari. Oh, and a nice shot. Backhand sits out. The layout bid is made, but unfortunately they failed to connect. Italians with an opportunity to take a break going into this second half. That was sat out on a string, and you can see the arm just goes above. Perhaps not necessary for the layout there. She could have just maybe reached and just clapped it.
Always hard to tell from that position. Clearly she felt she needed that extra space, but a very solid throw, but just out of reach. As we see Italy take a timeout here.
Interesting call for the Italians. Not a particularly long point, just the one turnover, and obviously a stoppage before for the injury substitution for Hauser. As we say, hopefully see her come back onto the field later in this game. Should be a big loss otherwise. So we see the ultileague.net van behind. If you don't know what that's about yet, we've been mentioning it many times here on the live stream. Why don't you visit ultileague.net and find out more? I highly recommend you do, especially if you've ever asked yourself the question, I wonder if I'll ever be paid to play Ultimate Frisbee. So Joe, what do you think the purpose of this timeout is?
I think it almost seems to me like the question of we have timeouts, we might as well use them. We mentioned this before, but there are 2 timeouts per team per half in this tournament, so that's 8 possible timeouts total per game. We are, as you mentioned, at 7-7, so this point will decide the half. I think it seems like the game's been going very quickly. We've had quite a few fast, uncontested holds. It might make sense if the Italian game plan is to get the measure of a team before clamping down in the second half. They might want to be stretching out this first half a little bit. So it might not be so much of a timeout with a specific goal to decide what the offense does or give the team a breather or swap people out for injury if needed. It might just be dragging that first half out a little bit to give them more space and time to come up with strategies for the second half.
Well, we'll see how this pans out for them. As we mentioned, the terminology galaxy point for this particular moment just ahead of the half with both teams level pegging. There's another phrase that likes to get used, the turnout. So with the wind in their faces, we'll see if the Italians' set play, what they discussed on the line, can come to fruition. Hot defense from the Swiss, pinning them in this near side corner of the end zone. On your screen, that's a beautiful shot out to space. And an out of position defender, Chiletzi, can't take the opportunity though to find that poached off player from the bid under by the red shirt of the Swiss player trying to get a poach block. Nice movement across the field. Players under, Ferolfi switched off, and there's an error there as the defense adjusts, causing the thrower to slightly adjust. That's going to be a hero bid in the making, but just too far to get the play out of Leonie Lenderman.
Very, very tempting to throw that throw if you have one of your players streaking into the end zone, particularly if it's one-on-one. You rarely get just one cut heading towards the end zone with nobody nearby, but the defender really did have position on that, and the throw would have had to arc a lot more away from the camera in order to make it into the hands of the cutter there. But again, not bad position here from Switzerland. Italy picking the disc up on the end zone line, looking to go into the wind, looking to go the full distance of the pitch. We saw them struggle a little bit in that corner, getting a handler reset off, although what may look like struggling for an expert team, if they get the disc out of there, they may not have felt like they were struggling at all. That's often what separates these very high-level teams, is being able to get out of those high-pressure situations without stress.
And so an error there off an immediate deep shot to try and gain a few yards. I think the Italians maybe coyly saying, well, Let's put it out into the deep space and then see if we can snag a turn off the Swiss. Not on our own goal line, just for a change. But the Swiss now looking to take their opportunity to win this half by 1, keeping things on serve. Nice up the line play. Windler makes a fake. Coach Gottlieb to my right in front of me, takes a little jump of frustration on that. It goes out to the space and the Swiss take half, finding Isabel Göttinger in the end zone. All down this near sideline, Joe, but it does work.
It does, and as you mentioned, a couple of breaks in that point, but that is, in the end, gets us back on serve. So the Swiss take it into halftime 8-7, but Italy will get the disc after the half. So a game of a few inches on either side, a few aggressive breaks by each team, but in the end, actually even.
Well, these two are going neck and neck. This women's power pool so hotly contested. If it does continue to just trade and go on serve, Joe, even though Italians got the upwind break early on, they were matched by the Swiss. This one would go in the favor of the Swiss side, just on the fact of they started the game out on offense, which they held. And up until, 3-3 was the only point we saw the Italians break. It's been such good women's ultimate here. We're going to take a short break during the half, but we'll be right back with the action. Stick with us here in this women's power pool play match. Welcome back to this spicy, hot, sweaty, contested women's pool play match. You'll have to excuse me if I sound a little bit out of breath. I just did a mad dash to the nearest women's toilet here at the Field Complex in Győr, which I have to say, considering how much duty it's taking, being one of the few facilities to relieve oneself as a woman here at the tournament, very, very clean, well organised. So Italy with the offense, Ceschi on disc, back to Bonfante, Lolli to Ceschi, Swiss zone against them. Nice movement round the back of the handlers, making aggressive positioning on what is quite a loose look from the Swiss. As they now transition, they melt into match defense. Bonfante reaches in around, that's quite short, hotly contested, but great work from Ceschi. Makes no error there. Vandelli fakes the around. Great handler coverage from the Swiss. Ceschi back to Bonfante. Again, sharp around fakes. But this is really great from the Swiss defense.
I think a pick called there. I think that's why we've got this stoppage. Very brief hand signals, but I think the two defenders on those handlers getting a little bit caught up in each other.
See a little shot of the little three-wheel bicycle delivering water to the far pitches. Patience from Bonfante. Oh, and there's a beautiful run through D. Come out the blocks goes Eugenia Harms, sorry. Fired up for her team. If Switzerland can get a break out of this second half straight away, they might have a chance of tearing it away from the Italians, but an error there. I think there might be a foul call on the throw. Certainly released on the run. Julia Vandelli getting a bit too much contact. This will come back. Looks to be uncontested. And so, Swiss's D-line with an opportunity. Kunzelmann, the big, deep defender, finds Linnea Siebert, who's going to rip it deep. That one's surely going to sit and hang, looking at how much underside of the disc is towards the wind. Oh, and it just tips out of the hands of the Swiss player. Can't quite see the number from behind, but almost looked like she was playing defense the way that one came out of her hands. Sorrenti, far side, looks frantically around for a reset. Ceschi available in the short space. Big around backhand. That's going to sit and hang, so many players under it, and great reception from the Swiss. Can they capitalize on their defensive pressure this time without errors? Great separation there. Number 19 finally gets a match up from the Italian side. Siebert, another big shot. That one's a lot better, but again, it's going to be taken away from the Swiss, this time by the Italians. Frantic pressure from Chiara Lolli to keep their opportunity of leveling it back up alive.
Both teams looking a little bit frantic coming out of half. A couple of options coming off that I don't think we've seen the like of in the first half. The first half a bit more calm and collected on offense, and this first point here is demonstrating a little bit more perhaps of the energy to try and get one in at all costs.
Well, the Italians certainly looking a little bit frantic. The Swiss seem to have done what the Italians hoped to do and sort of figured out their style of play, taking away the options that they really want. Bonfante far side now, rather than her central position, which has been taken up by Sorrenti. As we see this loose, saggy zone from the Swiss. Great movement from the cup. Ooh, bit close to the central defender there. Would have been nice to see Chambon have a crack at the hand block. Oh, they're reaching hand through anyway. Look, Switzerland continuing to do the right thing. Play this patient defense. But a nice find from the far side. Chesky playing that wing space. Vandelli still working nicely. And we see a much better around backhand. Oh, tumbles to the ground goes Kunzelmann. Lali must be so close to the end zone now. Italians in a vertical stack that's going to sit and hang, but so well received, holds the space. A score for Italy, leveling it back up. Francesca Sorrenti going up tough.
So that's a hold for Italy, but anything but a clean hold. Both teams looking a little bit wired in going into that point. Lots of throws going in either direction, quite high, quite floaty. As we see the final pass that comes here, there's a lot of opportunity for the defender to get a hand in on it. It really sits up in the wind quite strongly. The wind catching that edge of the disc, pushing it up. The Italian player does a very good job of getting up to catch it, but a lot of the throws that we saw in this point were ones where there were high potential for fouls to be called on the defense. Very impressive from both teams' defense. There weren't any fouls. I think both teams doing a very good job of being in control of their body and managing the contact. But while it does bring the score back to even, and it is a break for Italy, not as convincing as the holds, is a hold for Italy, not as convincing as the holds that we saw in the first half.
Well, perhaps having had that little break, things are getting a little bit flustered. As we say, the Italians had very early, easy early stages of this tournament, taking teams to task, whereas the Swiss had more of a grind, but that is a beautiful throw. Is that from the arm of Olivia Hauser once again?
I didn't catch it, I'm sure we'll see on the replay, but definitely a Hauserian throw, if you can say that, sitting beautifully into the arms of the receiver.
Oh, we saw plenty of those distributed by the Belgian women's team in the other final pool play match on the live stream for this women's pool. They were just putting them over the fingertips, and there we do see the release of Olivia Hauser, almost the full length of this ever so slightly longer ultimate field, and just, I mean, great work on the receiver to keep the defender in the right space so only she could make a play in the golden channel. But what a rip from Olivia Hauser. Tell you what, that person I heard on the sideline saying maybe she was past her best, I mean, I'm gonna have to argue they are probably quite wrong.
Continuing the trend here of the first half, downwind holds. Both teams having gotten their downwind holds, but the Swiss making it look absolutely easy, and the Italians really having to grit and grind through some very difficult defense.
And during that 7-minute half, which is pretty long, normally tournaments you play that aren't European Championships tend to have much shorter breaks, allowing you to continue on the momentum you had before. But the big difference seems to be here that it's allowed an opportunity for the wind to suddenly pick up with mucho gusto. Although I think that means it's very tasty, but it's because it sounds a little bit like the word gust, which of course in English is just referring to these gusts of wind. Now going right to left on your screen. So Bonfante reignites her central handler position. Gagliarini easily around. So we once again see this zone defense from the Swiss, and it causes an error. That was a really high, spicy biscuit from the Italians. Swiss an opportunity to take their first break in this second half. Lindemann into Lehmann. Back to Lindemann. Very similar names, and that is a sensational backhand for an upwind break. The Swiss women take the lead once more. 9-8. They lead the charge.
The excitement with which...
Not break, sorry. I get excited by this. I'm so confused. Not a break. Sorry. 8-8. 10-8. There we go. Sorry. I have to say, Joan, I'm getting very excited and distracted by this intensity in this game, and I'm forgetting to put the points into our little system. So, the score from our scorekeeper is Switzerland 10, Italy 8. There we go.
I think that is a break, though, for Switzerland.
Yes, it
Yes,
is a break. There we
yes.
go.
So, yeah.
I was getting excited saying
Yeah,
the break, and then I
absolutely.
had furious head shaking. Saw furious head shaking.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to calm down.
It's a very exciting game.
Calm the heck down. I'm misleading the audience. I'm sure our Ulti TV crew are getting the scores right. They're champions. The scoreboard you see in front of you, ignore the words that I'm saying about the facts. I'm just going to stop announcing the score. I'm just going to let the calm people handle this. I'm just getting really into this game. I hope you are too, Joe.
Absolutely. That was an incredibly exciting point there. That upwind end zone so hard to go into. When you get that breaks there, it's almost like a double break. You've broken the offense and you've moved it upwind, and you get to be on this downwind defense here, really putting the Italian side into a tough corner, going upwind to try and hold their offense.
And so, again, lovely poaching from the handler defenders of the Swiss, the ladies in red. And now Chielezzi. She's going to put the disc up into the space, but a miscommunication. I'm pretty sure Francesca Sorrenti had given up hope on scoring that one in that particular cut.
Difficult cut to hit. The cutter is running almost exactly in line with the thrower away from them. The throw has to curve around and hit them in the back of the head. Hard to catch.
And so the Swiss with an opportunity to take 2 breaks on the trot, a fact of which I am fairly sure is true, as Kunzelmann goes down that far side. I see a wily nod from our wonderful scorekeeper, backing me up like a true champion. High disc reeled in by the long arm of Erika Lastufka, and a timeout from Switzerland.
A timeout emphatically celebrated by the Swiss coach. He's very vocal on the sideline, very positive and reinforcing of his team's choices. And you have to think Switzerland feeling pretty strong right now, getting that break and then getting a turn here and in quite good field positioning to get a second break in a row.
And that would be quite the achievement in this game. We did talk about the windy conditions, saying that it would probably end up being one of those upwind, downwind battles.
Switzerland having, we mentioned a bit about their road to this game, having won 4 games and lost 2 games already. There were 2 games that they won on Universe. They beat Sweden and GB on Universe. That's a special kind of experience that gives you, knowing that you can win those really close battles. And they also have 2 games that were streamed. So they were streamed beating Poland and streamed losing to Finland. So lots of opportunities to learn from playing opponents, but also to watch themselves back. And a thing that I've seen about this Swiss team, having watched them rest in between games and prep for games, they're doing a lot of active learning while they're here. They're running drills between games. They're having team discussions about different offensive tactics that they want to try out, having learned what they learned from the game that they've just finished, obviously aided by having a non-playing coach who can watch and give insight. So in terms of growth throughout the tournament, in terms of adjusting to the opponents that they've seen and the opponents that they expect to see, I think we're seeing Switzerland, they started off very strong, but we're seeing them getting stronger as the tournament goes on as a result of actively working to better themselves while they're here, which I think is exciting and definitely paying off.
We hear the chants of the Italian women on the far sideline, trying to gee up the spirits of their teammates as they look to earn the disc back and prevent the Swiss from taking 2 breaks on the trot here in this so important women's pool play matchup. Siebert is going to open up the disc on the backhand side, and it just tips off the fingers of Laura Kunzelmann.
That's 2 discs from Switzerland, one in this half, one in the last half that we've seen just go off the fingers in that corner of the end zone. That one is definitely the harder corner of the end zone with the wind blowing away from it. Those discs have to have the zip on them that we saw the thrower put, but that zip does make them fly incredibly hard, very difficult to reel in.
And I wonder also if Kunzelmann, being so close to this near sideline, such a tight channel, maybe that also put her off a wee bit, thinking about her toes rather than her hands. But the Italians will face the wind once more. Oh, and an error. You see Sorrenti trying to get her hands around it in a post through the letterbox from Siebert to Windler. And that's 2 breaks to the Swiss in a row. They now lead 11-8.
Absolutely sealing that break in with a second break. That's exactly what you want to do if you're Switzerland in that opportunity. And I love that aggression there on offense. One thing about being in a zone defense is you have that 3 or 4 person cup around the disc. So if the handlers turn over, you have people there immediately ready for that pop pass. You arguably have more people around the disc than Italy does, because you had that cup there, and those 2 players who were in that cup can throw and catch that score.
And so, contrary to your very conservative prediction, I'm going to say, I'm not going to hang you out on a nail anywhere, Joanna. You were pretty conservative about these 2 teams. You said you did slightly favour the Italians. Looks like the Swiss heard you and decided to come out with some fire. But I'm very, very invested in this match.
And as we've seen throughout the tournament, no lead is enough to guarantee a win. In fact, Italy themselves, the first game of the tournament, they went down 3-0 to the Netherlands, then going on a 9-point run to win 13-8. So none of the teams in this tournament stranger to a comeback, and this tournament no stranger to comeback games.
Well, that is exactly what we come to the European Championships for. And Kjær is no different. As we see Bonfante and Lolly just playing a little game of catch together. Maybe they're just imagining that no one else is around them, just the 2 of them on the field. Eventually they choose to throw to a different target, and it's not caught. So coming out of that hasn't worked for the Swiss. Sorry, it has worked for the Swiss greatly in their favour. Nice reaching grab from Lundsmann. Finds Mayor. Oh, she's going to launch a big one, but that's way too far. Squandered opportunity for a 3rd break from the Swiss.
Definitely not perfect D-line offense here from the Swiss, but what they've shown is that they will get another opportunity. They've been very good at putting pressure on to get opportunities for turns from this Italian side. So while they'll obviously be frustrated at losing that opportunity, they may well get another one.
So Farolfi. Oh, and again, an error from the Italians. This time, a ground strip. Number 9, Giulia Vandelli. Oh, that's a much better backhand put, but Chesky's all over it. High pressure for the Swiss, but they come up good. That's another break of score. 4 points on their run. Phoebe Chambord reels it in.
Absolute scenes from the Swiss team here, celebrating, storming the field, hands high up in the air, high-fiving each other. Italians, a very different story, walking back to their sideline. Not heads down, but much more reserved. The Swiss absolutely deserving to celebrate there. That first throw they put into that corner, not perfect. This one, right on the money.
Great attack there. You can see Chesky gnashing at the heels of Chambord, but that's fabulous play from the Swiss women, coming up big in this final round of power pool play.
We have spoken a little bit. The wind has died down now. In this timeout, we haven't got too much wind, but in the first half of the game, we saw that the downwind points were the easy holds, the wind really assisting people to be throwing it into that far downwind end zone corner. I think what we've seen here in that point was the wind, the downwind working against the Italians. Their throws just dropping much faster than they expected. Their players having to go to ground and losing the disc between their hands and the ground. Sometimes going downwind can be harder than going upwind. You know what you have to do going upwind. You know that the wind is going to try and take away your throw and throw them really high. You have to sit them low with lots of spin. Going downwind, you know the disc is going to drop, but you don't know when. And we saw in that point very experienced handlers putting up throws that probably should have worked, and the wind just eating them up.
So frustration for the Italians, elation for the Swiss. It ain't over by any means yet, Joe. This Italians women's side has lots of feisty energy in it, plenty of experienced, talented players. This game, of course, will decide who takes the top spot in women's power pool WE, advancing straight away into a quarter-final spot. The loser will have to play a pre-quarter matchup against one of the top finishers of the non-power pool. We'll try and figure out exactly who that might be. But I've got my trusty reporter, Christina Obermeier, covering the division for Ulti World. Shout out to Christina. She's been doing a fantastic job of bringing us those articles each evening. Working hard. Sometimes when we've got a beer in hand, you know, maybe keep it nice and loose. But the Italian will look to play very tight offense here against the Swiss zone that's been so effective at making them just make plain and simple execution errors as they get more and more frustrated watching this game get taken further and further away from them. Bonfante to Ferolfi. Big name players. Good give goes, moving well now. Ferolfi reaching out those hands, immediately asking for the disc back. Give goes. Gillespie involved in that hand of set two. Bonfante back to Ferolfi. As we see what looks like the Swiss now melting. The word fire is yelled from the mouth of Coach Gottlieb. Pick call downfield. Into the fists go into the air for Erika Lastufka, which, if I remember, is one of the older Swiss players, the number 27. Oh, I take it back, she's only 28. Oh, that's a beautiful shot out to Ferolfi for the score. An Italian much needed hold.
Absolutely, that will fire them up, and we see the Italians coming out onto the pitch with some synchronized arm clapping, riling their team up after that. Bonfanti and Ferolfi going to work for their team there, slicing through that zone and then getting that put in the back of the end zone. That's exactly what Italy needed there. They needed to hold. That's an upwind hold, which is not an easy ask in this blustery wind, but really proving that they have the experience and the mental toughness to just grind this one out. A no-turn hold.
And that is some saucy separation from the former Eurostar. We haven't actually mentioned yet that Olivia Hauser was also a Eurostar. The 36-year-old, one of the oldest players on the Swiss women's roster.
It's been so nice to see. There's quite a few teams that have 1 or 2 Eurostars at this tournament, and it's not that the Eurostars are on a different level than the rest of their teammates. They, you know, they've come up within the clubs that make up their teammates on these national teams. It's just that they've had a bit more media exposure globally, so we've been able to watch how they play together. It's been so great to watch them come back and play with their national teams. We've seen the Finnish team with Essi Inkinen, and watching what it's like for her to bring her skills back to their team, and to get to watch a lot of these great matchups of Eurostars on different teams meeting each other in the national stage.
Oh, and keep your eyes peeled later on in the season for more Eurostars action. I will certainly be watching that one with an excellent view. And you can still actually sponsor a player, that opportunity available if you want to support the work that Bexforth and co are doing. If you love high-level European women's ultimate on the world stage. So the Swiss with a jailbreak through against the Italian defense, and that is another upwind score for the women in red. What a fantastic play. Tumbles to the ground for the grab, Florence Windler.
Emphatically punched in there by Switzerland. That was, again, great zone offense from them, but not exactly the style of great zone offense we saw in the first half. This is a bit more aggressive, punching it through. That long disc was so effective at going up because the cutter came from this side of the disc before the deep defense in the zone knew she was there. Italy possibly let down a little bit by their sideline, only a few players on this side of the disc, so many fewer people able to notice that deep cut going and let the deep defender know, as opposed to the Swiss sideline, which has been numerous, loud, and well supported by their coach throughout this game. So we've heard lots of information coming to the Swiss zone, but less information going to the defenders from the Italian team as they're trying to mark out those players.
So the Swiss bring it within 2 of the win. Just shy of 30 minutes left of regulation time here in Dieu. The Swiss will be totally fine to see this one go to the full 100 minutes if they can keep hold of this 4-point lead they currently have over the players of Italy. Done so well so far in this tournament. Winner of this match, of course, taking that top spot in Women's Power Pool WE. The loser looking to fight for their journey into the bracket. Good defense right now from the Swiss, forcing the Italians into very tight channels. And is that a hand block, Joanna?
It was blocked from our view by the body of the receiver, but potentially because she blocked it with her body, as we see a disc bounce off the fingers of a receiver in the end zone.
Oh, that is bitterly disappointing. After such great defense, they're going to have to do it again. No opportunity to have brought it up to match point. With a 5-point margin, would be incredible scenes here. Such a deep women's division at this European Championship. Exciting stuff as Italy get to work. Advancing up the field. Defenders on the shoulder, but a complete miscommunication. The intended target was never expecting that one. Scagliarini unable to realize until it was far too late. The win behind the Swiss. Stack is very, very deep, but out comes the number 19, Phoebe Chamba. Harms. Pit call downfield, see the guns out, the clenched fists. Many of the WFDF hand signals very, very similar to each other. Very important to know when to clench your fists and when to have open flat palms. Often you see players getting that wrong on the violation calls. Joanna.
Yes, we had an instance of that actually in a game that I was playing where an opposing team thought that we were calling a goal because we had open hands calling a violation, and they hotly contested our assumption that we might have scored a point.
Another pick. Seems to be quite a lot of those right now. Again, we see the very tight handler marks tripping over each other a wee bit. Disc coming back as Laura Falofi allowed to reset her mark. Not much available upfield for the Swiss. They're going to have to throw on a relatively high stall. Nice grab from Kunzelmann. Finds the space around. Chambo resets it back. Erika Lasfurka, she puts the hammer over the top. Oh, that was a That would have been a fame-making layout bid for that hammer. Would have made the highlight reel for sure, but the Swiss don't need to have such snazzy plays necessarily forced into that by the pressure of the Italians. Great stuff, really grinding this point out.
You can't help but feeling if the Swiss do manage to score this point, they're really opening up a chasm that's unreachable if they got this to game point. So Italians battling with everything they've got.
Farolfi unmarked this near sideline. Not something you want to do very frequently if you're hoping to hold on to a 4-point lead. Scazzieri. Bonfante, nice little button hook around the back of the force. Oh, hotly contested. Farolfi, center of the field, backhand, nice and high into the perfect space, just skims the finger of the defender and well reeled in for a hold for the Italians. They keep the Swiss away from match point.
Just by the skin of their teeth there, the Swiss with 2 shots into end zone that hit fingers of receivers, so you can't fault them for trying to score that goal, trying to put in that break, but the Italians putting on a lot of pressure that led to both of those throws being a bit much, and then here really opening up this break side. You could see with one, there's no force on, so she can just put that out into break space, lead the receiver for a goal.
So an Italian D-line needs to come out on force if they're going to have a hope of keeping this game alive, and that rest day, not having to play a pre-quarter, advancing straight into the bracket, the honor of taking that spot. I'm not sure many people would have called either of these teams to top the power pool. Christina indicating the Ulti-World Women's Reporter that she did pick one of these teams to top the Women's Power Pool. She's not confirmed which one exactly she did, but we'll get more news about that later. Factage confirmed. She picked Italy to top this bracket. There you go. Wow. May have picked wrong, although we've seen bigger comebacks in Ultimate Games before on live streams. Italians bringing all of their fire. If they can work hard and snag victory from the jaws of what might look like certain defeat at this point, they'll be able to rest afterwards. Rest easy straight into the bracket. We see the Swiss putting in lots of fakes, plenty conservative, happy to run those central defenders ragged. Tireless work, especially from number 28, Sarah Bonus. Ooh. Risky play now from the Swiss. Starting to tire, perhaps. Keeping the focus, swing it across nicely. Slightly out of position for the handler set. Good up lines now. Can they keep rolling in front of those handlers? Yes, they can. That's great work from the Swiss. Such patience. Got it through, and they bring it within one of topping Power Pool WE.
Absolutely exhausting swing play there from the Swiss. If you see how many times they moved the disc from the absolute far side of the pitch back to this one, that Italian cup was looking exhausted. There were very few times where the Swiss handlers held onto the disc for more than a few seconds, and you can keep up with one or two of those as a cup, but eventually it gets the better of you, allows them to break through up pitch, get this very, very quick movement between the upfield cutters and the Swiss, and just seal that one in. And that's at least 3 upwind points in a row. We've seen this a lot on this pitch. Each half favors one end zone. So we saw all of the holds in the first half going downwind with all the breaks going upwind. And now the momentum of the game has really moved into this upwind end zone. And I think that makes sense given the amount of extra fever we're seeing from both teams, the pressure and the hunger we're seeing for them to get these breaks and these holds. It almost makes sense for the upwind end zone to be the one where all the pressure is.
So Switzerland open up a big backhand pull. Great field positioning to start their campaign. Their one shot to close out this game. If not, they'll have to leave it in the hands of their O-line as the Italians try and get the better of this zone look. Bonfante. Nice swing across for Rolfi and Sorrenti. The other two handlers here. All big name players, and that's an absolutely beautiful put. Great positioning for Rolfi, but she takes a lot of contact as one of the Swiss defenders. I think that is Melina Bacher. B-A-C-H-E-R, maybe Basher should be the pronunciation of that one. Not intentional, of course, but just a bit of a trip. Makes a lot of contact with Ferolfi.
Both players making sure they're okay. Because the injury stoppage did result in the collision for 2 players, Ferolfi does not have to come off, which looks like she will not do. She wants to stay on for this point.
I think maybe unless one of her legs is falling off, Ferolfi will probably stay on. One of the key parts of this Italian offense. So I'll get back in play. A must score for Italy situation. Sorrenti. Lots of people cutting at the same time. The layout attempt is made, but it's too much for Ferolfi. Fake of the big, pops it off and sends it long. The Swiss try and finish it out with a big hut, but Annika Lundsmann just overthrown. Definitely had the separation. Danger, danger. High voltage throws at the business end of this women's pool play match. Again, we see patient swinging around the back, punctures through to Chesky. Ferolfi and Chesky looking for each other. Another bit of a clattering on the mark. Completely uncontested foul. Basha, or however you're supposed to pronounce Melina's surname. I'm now calling her Basha, I've decided, for the rest of this point. Taking a lot of contact. All intentional, I'm sure. Unintentional, I am sure. And we see a transition, a melt to match. Ferolfi, big backhand break. Chesky into Bonfante, pick call on Lolly in the center of the field. Catches up, still trailing a player under, but just allowed to catch up so she can apply that force ASAP. Should they still choose to engage her instead around. Another pick call here. We're seeing the downfield players now coming under for the resets as the Swiss wily defenders pile the pressure onto the handler sets. Now Bonfante back up to Sorrenti. It's a big backhand and there is a score. It's not going to be the Swiss D-line. Can it be the Swiss O-line who will see this one out? Score now 14-10.
Excellent play there by the Italian, showing that they have that mental toughness to ignore the scoreline, play the game to one, not be bothered too much about having to go into the wind to score in this end zone. I really loved watching Ferolfi play in that point. As one of the superstars of this team, as one of the players with the most experience, you could tell that she was getting ready, getting fired up to pick her team up here. But if you watch how she plays, she doesn't do it in a way that takes away space from anyone else on her team. She's not the only person making cuts. She's not making cuts that cut anybody else off. She spends a lot of time waiting in the stack in the right place at the right time to make cuts. So finding a way to help her team move the disc down the pitch without needing to make any flashy superhero moves.
And so Italy women bring out a D-line. They face a 4-point deficit. That is Gillesi with the pole. But Hauser, the number 17, the veteran of the Swiss ultimate scene. Centre in the field. Great work up the line. Mayor hops across to Lenderman, to Mayor. Nice inside backhand. Nida Hauser, nearly an error there. Little knee slide from Mayor. Pops it up, and that is the win for the Swiss women. They take this match 15-10. Oh, there's a call on the field. I pause my celebration. It looks to me, Joanna, like that call is going to be retracted. They're going to have a chat about it afterwards, but the goal is called good. The Swiss women take the power ball and the easy route to the bracket. They will not have to play a pre-quarter. You will see the Italians once again tomorrow here on the fields endure. You said about the Italians having to not pay attention to the scoreline. At points, I got so emotional that I didn't pay close attention to the scoreline. Joe, what's your summary of that game?
Definitely, I think that last point summed up pretty well how the Swiss were playing on offense. Complete, continual movement of the disc, just not able to stop that movement of the disc, keeping going down the pitch like a steamroller heading towards the end zone. Lots of confidence we saw there from the Swiss, keeping their zone basically as a defense the whole way through the match, trusting in it very well, adjusting it to the Italians. And I think, yeah, the Italians not able to find a weak spot in the Swiss to break through. I think either of those teams could have won the match going into it. I think we were debating who we felt was stronger, but the Swiss really demonstrating there that they deserve to be heading directly into the bracket play.
Well, there you have it, friends. The Swiss take women's power pool WE in pretty good style. As you see, Coach Gottlieb there congratulating his team. His strategy worked out this time. Experienced O-line to finish it off. And we'll see you very, very soon. The action isn't over yet here at the EUC 2019. Up next on the stream, what do we have, Joe?
Let me pull that up so that we can have a look at it. We've got, on field one, we've got Russia, Switzerland mixed, taking each other on. And on this pitch, on this stream, we'll have the Czech Republic versus Austria mixed.
Both exciting matchups in the mixed division. I've been Hannah Pendlebury for Joanna Hamer. Italian women and Swiss women. It's been a fantastic match. We'll see you again very shortly.
Alti.tv